mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Smiles, everyone, smiles. I feel like Ricardo Montalban.
That's right.
Y'all, listen. If there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Welcome back. Y'all, listen here. Has it been 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
I don't know.
It's been like 2.5 weeks, maybe,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. And we are back. This is episode 2 of Y'all Listen Here. And we have gotten so much feedback. But first of all, let me welcome, of course, my co-host for this, Therese Apel with Dark Horse Press. Therese is giving off the LMA Clampett vibes today.
I guess I
Wave.
am. I hadn't thought about it. It's like the hair is drip dry, and then I've got the little country top on. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And then we've got Traci Lee with US 96.3, Your Country US. Traci is giving off the Christmas vibes today. Merry Christmas, Traci.
Ho, 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 Barbie. I wasn't sure how to take that because I knew I was going to do ho, 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 and then you said Christmas. So
The
here we are.
Christmas vibes.
Yeah.
Well, we still have a few more months, but my goodness, I just came back from the Neshoba County Fair.
Yeah.
And as I told y'all through our little group text,
Mm-hmm.
y'all, this is all y'all want to talk about. I mean, everybody was like, when's the next one? They enjoyed the first one. And let us say a big thank you
Yes.
for being a part of our first one. And thank you for being here for our second one. We are doing this live if you are watching us on the interwebs on Facebook, but you can also go back and rewatch it anytime, or you can listen to it on any of your favorite podcasts providers. We're also Y'all Listen Here on all of those. So it's been a little bit since we've been together, and the topics have been rolling in, friends.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think the three of us can always find something to talk about when we're together anyway. So, I was telling somebody today what we were going to talk about, and then it was like, and we'll probably get off on some side trails too,
Yeah.
So,
What do you think, Traci?
No, I'm excited. Anytime that I get to spend time with y'all is just enriching, and now getting to bring you into the conversation as well is only going to make it that much better, because we love to hear what you say. That's why we see the comments as you're writing them, and it just kind of feels like we all get to spend some quality time together, which I don't feel like we get to do enough as adults these days.
Right.
So I love being able to do this. I'm excited.
And we're, of course, thrilled to be back here with our fabulous producer extraordinaire.
that's right.
I know, he's sitting there going, oh, stop it. Daniel Anderson here with Audio Alchemy Productions. He is our podcast producer. And if you are interested in having your very own podcast, give Daniel a ring. He's our BFF now.
That's
right,
right.
Daniel? Yes. Yes, you can talk.
He's
Yeah.
shy.
He's kind of a shy guy.
He's behind the scenes.
And, speaking of the feedback that we received, one of the pieces of feedback that I had gotten from a listener, viewer, however you want to call it, I think they were actually watching it live when we were doing this live, was our last podcast topic was when we are offended, when someone hurts our feelings, or when we discover that we have hurt someone else's feelings, and how do we deal with those offenses? And such a good topic because we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there. But another person reached out to me and said, okay, they appreciated that topic, but what if you're not the one being offended? Maybe you see your friend go through a really difficult time, whether it's a divorce or, a job loss or a death in the family or something that just really hurts your heart for them and you don't want to see them hurt. What if it's not a offense between A to B, but it's almost like C is back here watching this? And how do you deal with that? I want to go back to what y'all did for me. We talked about this on the first episode in how a year and a half ago I had a little situation.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Listen, Daniel always laughs when I
Yeah,
say that. When I say the situation.
Well, I think, when we say the situation, we're thinking about, they're all the kind of things that you call a situation. Yours was more like a catastrophe, I think.
For real, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a catastrophe. And as I mentioned before, I'm not here to talk about that. I will talk about it one day. And I've had quite a few people ask, will I talk about it on the podcast? That remains to be seen. But today is not that day. But how y'all saw what was happening and how you were hurting for me, which started this whole friendship of three women together, and how each one of you reached out to me because you saw what was happening. So y'all have been in these positions yourself before when you've seen other people go through hurt. How do you deal with seeing those that you love or those that you respect or those that you admire? How do you deal with that?
So I think that if you're someone who is discerning, you're going to end up feeling it a lot more when your friends are going through something. Or in my case, I believe a lot in the truth. To me, the truth is very important. And when you look at a situation, you're looking not just at what is happening, but you're also looking at the truth behind it. And Barbie, to use your example, I think it was a really hard thing for me to see the things people were saying about you because I knew that wasn't who you were, and I knew that wasn't what you meant. So the truth was crying out to be defended, as well as my feelings for how you felt. So to me, it was very much a situation where, first of all, I wanted to kind of protect you. I wanted to reach out and just make sure you were okay. But then there was also the feeling of, not only is this wrong because my friend is hurting, it's also wrong because the truth is being mischaracterized and, frankly, trod upon in this situation. And to me, that's always been something that is important as the rest of it.
But we have seen this happen with our own friends. You find out that someone's going through a difficult relationship situation and you heard her side and you've heard a little bit of his side, or someone's going through a difficult time, like a death in the family, and your heart, you want to say something so bad and you want to offer them that support. And sometimes you just don't know what to say.
Well, I remember the first time that we got together after the incident and
The situation.
The catastrophe.
And, yeah,
The catastrophe.
And I remember not knowing, I didn't know what to say because I tried so hard to put myself in your position and what that would feel like professionally, what that would feel like personally, and knowing when you're in our jobs, those two things are so intertwined. And I did not know what to say, especially when we started talking about it and you started crying. And I get it. I was gut wrenched. But I think sometimes when you don't know what to say, you just listen and you just give the other person the space to feel what they need to feel, to hurt how they need to hurt. And then, like Therese said, if you're a discerning person, if you're a Christian, the Holy Spirit will prompt you with the words to say, because what better comfort than from the great comforter, to be able to offer to a friend. Because I'm going to be honest, Traci in the flesh wanted to burn the place to the ground, and I'm still not over that. But,
Therese did too.
It's just like, but just listening and giving you that space to be sad and not trying to fix it, but just trying to sit there with you in the pain and just let you know you're not by yourself. I'm so sorry this happened. I think sometimes that's the best thing that you can do is just be in the moment and just be there with a person, even if you can't offer. That sometimes is the best condolence or the best comfort that you can offer somebody.
Yeah, and just being with that person in the moment, whether that is sending a text, because like you just said, Traci, sometimes you just don't know what to say and you're afraid of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Case in point, after our first child, my husband and I miscarried. And it was very public because it was pretty obvious on television that I was expecting again. And then I disappeared for about a week and I come back and it's pretty obvious that I'm not expecting anymore. And from time to time, you would have people that would see you out at Walmart or whatever, and they would say, well, that just meant that that baby wasn't meant to be.
Mm-mm.
Or God needed your baby more than you did. And while you just kind of went, you had to remember they felt like they needed to say something.
Right.
And it came with the best of intentions. But sometimes what we do as humans is we don't say anything at all because we're afraid of saying something that will make things worse. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, and I think we've all also said something really stupid and offensive with the best of intentions before. I know that I'm real bad to, well, at least it's not such and such, and whatever I say is invariably the wrong such and such, that kind of thing. And so you can look at that and you can identify with it.
Sure.
But I think I was even thinking in terms of like love languages. When somebody's going through something, what is their love language? For me, it's going to be time spent a lot of times. So even if you can't help me, just showing up is a big part. And I feel like it's like that for everybody in whatever their love language is. You can tap into that, and it helps you kind of know what to do. Yeah. Because some people are not words of encouragement. And for me, like, I work in words. So words on the one hand are very powerful, but they don't always mean what people want them to mean to me.
Yeah.
But, I think that's something that, you can look at with each individual case.
Right. And I think sometimes even it, as a friend, it is your best intention and you want to say the right thing so you don't say anything at all. This is where the enemy loves to sneak in the back door, because then too much time has passed. And then what do you say? And then the other person is hurt that you didn't reach out. And then you try to explain it with, I didn't know what to say. I'm sorry. And then there's division. And then there's hurt, in that. So like you said, sometimes it's just a text. I love you. I'm thinking about you. Just to touch and let them know. You don't have to know the perfect thing to say. You don't have to be Dr. Phil. You
Right.
just are like, hey, I know that you're hurting. And I'm thinking of you.
So important to make those reach outs, because I don't know if you've been in these situations like I have, but I have great intentions. And I'm like, ooh, I need to send a card.
Yeah.
Or, ooh, I need to drop by a gift card to Chick-fil-A or something like that, make a casserole. And I get so busy with my own life that a week or 2 or 3 or 4 have passed by. And I'm like, Dad, gummit. And I had great intentions, but I got busy with what I was doing with my own life. And it's so important, like you said, Traci, that when you feel that prompting, you act on that prompting immediately. And I'm just one of those who believes that when you're prompted to do something immediately, it is the prompting of the Holy Spirit saying, this is what they need right now at this moment.
Yeah.
They don't need you to wait another week. They don't need you to wait another 3 weeks. Go ahead and do that thing now. And it's so hard when you have phones, when you do get distracted
Oh, yeah.
and it passes by your mind at 90 miles an hour, and you don't do that, but to act on that impulse at that time and not let it go. Not let it go.
Yeah. Just be intentional about it. Yeah. 100%.
Matters so much. And I was thinking the other day through my situation, a friend of mine, and she knows who she is, within a matter of hours was at my house with 4 or 5 bags of groceries from the grocery store. And, because she knew I did not want to see anybody. She knew I was not ready to have any interactions. And so she brought over several bags of snacks and things like that, and then brought over taco meat that was already made and spaghetti that was already made. Those were 2 meals right there that I didn't have to worry about. But ministering to others in their time of sadness or shock, I mean, that's a gift in itself. That's a ministry.
I love one of the ladies I used to minister with at Broadmoor, Melinda Hendricks, lost a son. She lost a child, and out of her great pain, she realized what people that were going through that same thing needed. And she started a ministry like the year of first. and she called it, so I can't remember what she called it, but the first Christmas, the first birthday, the year they would have graduated, all of those things that would have just been that extra pain, she always made sure to reach out and touch those families that were dealing with that, and how you can take, and Barbie, I think that you're a great example of this, how you can take something that went so wrong and turn it into something to help so many other people where they're hurting.
Yeah, my friend Lee right now, I mean, I can see some of your comments that are coming through on Facebook. Says sometimes there's nothing to say and that's okay, but one's presence in some form
Yeah.
is good enough.
Yeah.
Whether that is a text or a card or a, hey, can I just drop by some coffee real quick?
I want to bring up the time that I was deathly ill. And I mean, I'm sure it was COVID or whatever this thing is everybody has that looks like COVID, but it was last year or so. And so one like real soft spot for me is that since my mom's died, well, I mean, it's been since 2018, but I feel like I'm so alone in the world. And I feel like when I'm vulnerable, I don't have a place to fall back. And I just remember I told you guys that I was sick, and then Barbie, you texted and were like, I'm going to bring you some food. And you brought me soup and you brought leftovers. And I mean, it was so awesome. And I remember I texted you and just said, thank you, because I needed a mom. And you said I could tell.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was something that stuck with me because, in that moment, what you did, you didn't wait. And, you brought me stuff that you knew would feel good for someone who was sick. And I guess, I mean, we hadn't known each other well that long at that point, but when you said you could tell that I just needed my mom or a mom, that it felt good to be seen as well. And I think that that's part of this whole thing is just the comfort that you bring when you say, not only do I love you and I care about you and I'm here for you, I see you.
Right.
Yeah.
I see your struggle. I see what you're going through.
Right. Okay, I'm going to pivot here for just a second. If you have a friend who is offended and they are hurt and you know that they're in the wrong, then how do you address that as a friend? How do you sit down? I think probably what you don't want to do is what my family would do, like, you're totally screwed up, suck it up and move on. How do you approach that friend that has done something that they probably shouldn't have done and now they're reaping the consequences of it? Like how do you gently correct them into their behavior? Kind of changing and lining up. I know, so y'all didn't see that coming.
No,
I missed
did
the
not
planning meeting yesterday. So,
well, the first thing that pops into my mind is what the Bible says about love and how love is not easily offended. So let's go back to the fruits of the Spirit. If I have the fruit of the Spirit called love, then when you come to me, Traci, and say, Barbie, yeah, that didn't go over very well, or hey, sis, you need to fix whatever you did. If I have personally got that fruit of the Spirit of love, then I'm going to see that you are coming to me in that love. And while it may sting for a second or two or 10, I have to know that is coming from a place of honest transparency who want the best for me.
right. And I think speaking the truth in love has a lot to do with it. The Bible talks a lot about love, and our world has done a great job of muddying the waters of what love looks like. It's not blind acceptance. It's almost like a directional thing, like pointing toward the cross and toward the Father. This is what love is. And God corrects us, but he corrects us gently, and he pulls us in. Especially being a woman, I love the way that God takes the extra steps to woo us in and to let us know that we are well cared for and well protected. Just yesterday, my dad had to be rushed to the hospital yesterday morning, and there were so many of the little things that God took the extra step just to let us know that we weren't in this by ourselves. A kid that he coached in baseball, is a good friend of my brother's, on the fire department, got in the ambulance and rode with Dad from the house. He's like, I'm not leaving him. So he went to there, and he was the one that greeted us when we got to the emergency room. And my uncle, who lives in Louisiana, who is such a great shepherding pastor and such a great prayer warrior, happened to be traveling through Jackson yesterday
Just
afternoon.
happened to
Just
be
happened to be
traveling
traveling
through Jackson.
on his
Wow.
way back to Louisiana, right as Dad is admitted into ICU, and he was able to come pray with Dad and just offer such peace and comfort to the family. And those may not seem like a whole lot, but when your family's just, or you're shocked by something that's going on, those two small acts just had God's fingerprints all over them. And even though it wasn't an offense, it was still a need that was met. And it was met so beautifully and so gently and so God ordained that you can't explain that away. And you can't say, what a coincidence that happened, because God cares for us so well and teaches us how to care for others in situations where they need it.
Well, someone mentioned that on our first podcast, they loved how you pointed out about how sometimes, how was it that you put it, that sometimes I like to be above so I can kick rocks on the people
Yeah.
below?
Yeah.
They loved how you put that. Because I also think that sometimes when you have someone that you're watching who is going through a difficult time, let's say it's a divorce, you want to defend that friend of yours. You know, you want to make things better for them. And it is our first reaction to want to defend them. And no, that's not what happened, or no, it didn't happen that way. And you kind of want to be that voice for them, kind of like what you said, Therese. You wanted to be a voice for me. And while I think that's completely appreciated, it's almost like it's more important to get down into the pit 100%. With the person. You know, that's one thing that I appreciated with both of you and with a few others, who it is so easy that when you see someone in the pit of life, whatever that pit looks like, we become so accustomed to, we'll just walk by that pit and look down and say, I'm praying for you. Hey, it's going to look up. You just keep your chin up. You're going to be just fine. Or tomorrow's going to be a much better day. Hey, you deserved better anyway. And then they just walk past your pit. But there are very few people that actually crawl down and get in the pit with you.
Yeah.
Because the pit is dark, it is ugly, and it is lonely.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you, and I'm going to speak for Therese here too, because I've known you long enough to know a warrior spirit. Like, I think that all of us have. I think a lot of times we feel like God has given us a sword when He's actually given us a shield. And instead
Girl,
of fight,
wait, that's going to preach right there. That preaches
was
Sunday
real.
morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night.
because we want to, like, I'll show you, when a lot of times there's a shield that says, I will protect you.
Yeah.
And you can stand behind this, and I will hold this up. Just kind of like Moses had his arms held up during the time. You know, it's just, I will hold you up during this time, instead of slaying the people that did you and leaving that for another time. And hopefully if redemption doesn't come, the Lord will get around to it quickly.
Yes.
So, yeah, there you go.
Well, and when you think about it, so many times when you come into that situation, you know, I think the best example is, you know, them holding up Moses's arms, because I know the times that I've gone through something really hard, really, you know, hard to deal with, I've needed to lean on somebody. And I've needed somebody to keep the bad stuff off me, you know, and you don't, I'd never thought about it in those terms, but a shield is exactly what you need. You need somebody to stand there and absorb some of the blows for you. And I feel like, you know, when it comes down to it, that is more important than fighting for someone, because in every situation in this room that we've had, we've done our own share of fighting for ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, every day when you're going through something is a fight for yourself. Yes, it helps to have somebody fighting beside you, absolutely. But to be that person who can shelter you or shield you from those incoming arrows is a big deal. Yesterday, I know y'all are aware, but yesterday I worked a story in Pike County. An officer that I knew from Lincoln County was killed in the line of duty. I have a friend that has been my friend forever, and he and I have been through all kinds of things together. And it was like when I saw him, he had worked with this guy. And so I'd already texted him 2 or 3 times, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And so he called, and I was like, "Are you going past a gas station? Would you get me a Coke and some ice?" Or Diet Dr. Pepper, obviously, and some ice. And so we're standing at the hospital waiting for them to bring the officer out on the stretcher to take him to Jackson. And I looked up and I saw this friend, and he was walking towards me with a Diet Dr. Pepper in his hand. And it's like my whole spirit just felt better because I knew that with him there, with the way our relationship works, we protect each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like just having each other there, and we've been through several situations like this. And afterwards, and this is kind of where I was going to go earlier in the conversation, as I was driving back, I called him and I said, listen, don't freak out. I'm not getting mushy on you, but I need you to know I'm very grateful for who you are in my life and for the station that you hold. And, you know, seeing you today, as soon as I saw you, I felt more safe. I felt comforted. I felt at peace. And I said, you know, I needed to tell you that now because he's law enforcement. Tomorrow could be the last day,
Right.
you know. And I feel like those are the moments that, as we talk about this topic, you have to think about those moments too. You know, it's not just about, hey, they're hurting my friend, I need to jump in. It's not about how do I comfort you. It's also about the fact that tomorrow might not be here.
Yeah.
You know, so what is my last act in this situation? Did I leave you out there dealing with it for yourself? Or did I just make a simple phone call that said, hey, are you all right? You know?
So true. I think back on the story of Joseph in the Bible, yeah, who was thrown into a literal pit, you know, a cistern, a well, if you will. And I began thinking, what would have happened if somebody, maybe even one of his brothers, would have gotten down in that well, in that pit with him? How would that have changed the trajectory of the future? Now we know that what the devil meant for harm, God meant for good, because that's actually spoken about in his story. And you can read through, you know, the end of that chapter and his story, and God elevated him out of that pit. He was elevated out of that pit to save, you know, his own family and his own people. But what would happen? How would people be changed if we were to get down into the pit? Sending a card, dropping a card in the mail, dropping a gift card, sending a text, calling, messaging somebody on Facebook. Y'all, that's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy. But getting down in the pit with somebody when they're going through a difficult time or a major distraction or grief, not many people want to do that.
You know, and it's funny that you bring that up because a couple of years ago, I had a situation where I was going through an ugly breakup, and one of my best friends had just died, and someone who was in a position of being one of my very best friends all of a sudden just wasn't doing it anymore. She just wouldn't, just out.
Yeah.
And later on sent me a message that said, I've found other friends that can fulfill my needs. And that was at probably the lowest point in my life since my mother had died. And it was one of those things that I, you know, that feeling of betrayal and all that, you know, that passes eventually. But what I wanted to bring up is when we're talking about Joseph, yes, what if it would have, you know, what if one of his brothers would have gotten down there with him? What if they would have pulled him out? When you're the one in the pit and there's nobody there with you, or you're watching people walk away, the other thing to remember is, who did Joseph become?
Yeah.
You know, like God was there in the pit with him.
Yeah.
And so while, yes, it is our job to do that, when it's you and you're left there to get sold into slavery or whatever the situation is, like with Joseph, or, you know, getting lied on or any of those things, if you do have to do it in a situation where you're like, where is everybody? I think David wrote several Psalms about where did everybody go?
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
you have to look at how God takes that moment of aloneness and of fear and of, you know, betrayal and says, but look what I'm about to do with you.
Yeah.
You know?
And there are so many other stories in the Bible about that. You think about Ruth and Naomi. You know, Ruth, Naomi, I believe, had lost her husband. And not only had he died, but she lost both of her sons. Ruth and Orpah, I think is what her names were. And they were like, you know, one went back to their homeland because they were going through such a famine. And then the other said, no, I'm staying. I'm staying here. So whatever this pit is, I'm staying with you, Naomi. And that's what Ruth did. Now, again, God made that story beautiful, and how he redeemed both of them, really. But that's so important. I was, in fact, a scripture that comes to my mind right now is that I was just thinking about, is the one, Hebrews 13:16, and do not forget to do good and share with others, for with such sacrifices, y'all, doing good to other people is a sacrifice.
It is. It is.
So doing so, for with such sacrifices, God is pleased. And Hebrews 6:10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. So many people call that karma. I don't believe in karma, but what I can attest to, what I can testify to, is God sees all. He sees how both of you have acted, not just towards me, but towards other people. And at some point, that comes back. I mean, it's seed time and harvest, if you really want to call it
100%.
that.
And you need to think about it from, if we're talking about trying to live Christ-like lives, so Jesus got in the pit every day. He was healing the blind. He was healing the lepers. He was, comforting the sick. Across the board, the woman at the well, you can find a million places where Jesus reaches down. And the thing is, like, maybe you and I can't heal lepers. Maybe we're not able to just say, my son, your sins are forgiven, and he gets to walk away. But I think this is the place that God gives us that same authority and power is, I see you hurting. God, what do I do? What's my move here? Yeah. Because just like he sent the disciples out and said, go do this. I'm giving you this power. I'm giving you this authority to go make life better, cast out demons, to, heal the sick. Well, maybe that's a different look now. Maybe even though we can't just do that, this is where we're called. If you're spiritually sick, if you're hurting, if you're, struggling, this is where, as Christ followers, we're reaching down like he did.
Right. And I love that you said that, where God tells you, because I think it's so important to have discernment and to listen and press in when you are trying to comfort, when you are trying to get in the pit, because I have a term that I use a lot when it comes to dealing with people, and it's called colander people. Because I think there are sometimes people that you pour into and you pour into and you pour into, they're not retaining a thing, and then you're both empty at the end of the day. And I think sometimes without pressing into God and without asking him, what do you need to do to help comfort this friend or come along beside this person, we just assume, well, this is what I should do, so I'm just going to do this. And that's not what God called you to do. And then you're both empty. Yeah. And, at the end of the day, and it's so important as we move forward to press into him every day. And ask him. If you don't know what to say, fine, a text, all that stuff, great. But if it gets to a point where you have that check in your spirit and you're just not sure if that's what you should do, pay attention to that. Yeah. Because sometimes I had a youth pastor one time that said, it is so much easier for me to pull you down than it is for you to pull me up, or for me to pull you up. So, and he stood up on the pew and was on the ground and pulled somebody down really quick. And just keep that in mind. And I'm not just discouraging from helping people at all. Right. I just think there needs to be some discernment, because sometimes people are so hurt, they don't know how to do anything but suck the life out of you. It's not their fault, but they're just in that place of pain, which is why it's so important that you go to another power source to be able to do that. And that power source, of course, being the love of God.
Yeah, Matthew 5:16, let your light shine before others, that they see your good deeds and they glorify your God in heaven. The Father in heaven is another translation of that, because when we are helping each other, when we are, hitching our horse to somebody else's broken wagon, he sees that. And what you want to have happen is you want those people to say, you're such a godsend. I think about all of you, and I think about, other people who have sent me messages and reached out over this last year and a half. and not just in that my situation, but in other situations. There goes Daniel and his laugh again. But in other personal situations that I've had where people do reach out and they do come for a visit, or they see me in Walmart and they just come up and hug you. They don't want to say anything. They just want to hug. And you walk away saying, God, I needed that. Thank you for sending them at that point in time. Y'all know I'm from the country.
And I'm Ellie Mae Clampett today.
You are Ellie Mae Clampett today. A cute Ellie Mae Clampett, we might add. But being from the country, one thing that I would always see as a kid are earthworms that whenever it would rain, a lot of them will come to the surface. And there's, some theories, even though earthworms can't talk. There's some theories out there. Here comes homeschool mom coming out at me. I've homeschooled our 3 kids since kindergarten, so this is kind of coming back from a physical science lesson. But some theories are out there that earthworms, the reason why they come to the surface after a big rain is because they breathe through their skin. And they need it to be just a little bit drier. And so they come to the surface so that way they can breathe. But also another reason why they come to the surface, especially on a hot summer day, is to migrate and to move. And how many times as a little kid would I see an earthworm come to the hot surface? And I would reach down and pick up that earthworm and find another spot in the garden or the flower bed or somewhere and, place them right there so they could live another day. And that's what we are to do as Christians. There are going to be earthworms in our life that come to the surface and need to be put back in the grass.
Yeah.
Or they need to be put back wherever they can thrive. And while you may think, oh, that didn't matter to that earthworm. Well, it mattered to that one. It mattered to that earthworm that I put back on the grass that day. And that's the adversary in our mind saying, it doesn't matter, Tracy, those colander people. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're going to come back to you again next week, and they're going to have another crisis that they're going to expect you to fix. But it does matter to that one that you helped on that particular day. 100%. And that's a challenge that we all have to do as Christians, is get in the pit with people.
Well, and I feel like too, it's worth talking about how life is a pit.
Ooh.
When you think about it, like, is there a day that you get to just relax and you're not worried about money or family or your emotions or work or whatever? It's like every day you have a struggle. And that's why, I've never been somebody that had a ton of friends. I'm not somebody that people stick to for whatever reason, but I am built incredibly loyal. So when I don't have friends, it's like I have all this like anxiety because I don't have anywhere to put all this friend love. But in the last few years, and I think this is worth talking about in a future podcast, I've tried to be very intentional about picking the people that I surround myself with. And both of y'all were that. I feel like it's worth saying that you get in the pit when you choose to be friends.
Yeah.
So like now that I have said, Tracy, you're my friend, Barbie, you're my friend, you're in the pit with me and I'm in the pit with you. And it's almost like that is also a part of our calling as Christians, is to find those people who need you, find those people whose lives you fit into and who fit into your life. Again, discernment is going to be a big deal, because I've picked as many bad friends as I've picked good friends. But when you find those people, you pour into them. And there are going to be times that you're pouring 100% and they can't give back. And there will be times that it's 80-20, times that it's 50-50, and there are going to be days they give you 100%.
So true. Parting thoughts, Tracy.
Well, when you were talking about earthworms, the first thing that I thought of is sometimes the earthworms that come up in our life that we need to move. Like if you look at the earthworm as something that that is coming up out of the pit, perhaps it's a bad marriage, perhaps it's a bad relationship, don't squish it. Put it somewhere where it can live another day, because you never know. This could be another thing. And I understand this is where I think friendships come in, because you can have somebody encourage you and be like, okay, don't give up. Yeah. Just there's hope. There are good things that I know the plans that I have for you. These are the things that you remind that person of, so you can put your earthworm somewhere good.
Oh,
that's
I
what I
like
thought
that.
Mhm.
I like that. Well, we have got to tell you about Complete Exteriors. Here in Mississippi, we get a lot of rain.
Yeah, we do.
Although we have not had a tropical system
Not yet.
this summer, not yet, but we do get our share of thunderstorms. And when you have got leaks or roof damage caused by the storms, or debris, Complete Exteriors needs to be your very first phone call. They are more than a roofing contractor. They are members of our communities, the guys and the girls there.
Absolutely.
Because we got to give them props too. They are incredible. They were started back in 2007. And Complete Exteriors is your hometown roofing contractor for all of your residential and commercial roof issues. I love the fact that they are in and out very quickly. They're not going to disrupt your day or your flow or whatever you've got going on in your life as everybody is busy. So you've got to give Complete Exteriors a call. You can call them today. Their phone number is 601-326-2755, or you can go to www.completeexteriorsms.com. We want to thank them for being an incredible sponsor of our podcast, of the Y'all Listen Here. But you're going to love the guys and the girls there at Complete Exteriors, and they're going to do everything they can to get your roof and your exteriors back to normal and looking fine.
Yeah, I wish they worked on people. They could lift my exterior here and there. That'd be great.
That's great. That is great. Yeah, a little bit of lifting and
Tucking and
I wasn't going to say that,
So as soon
Tracy.
as they have like a plastic surgeon on staff, we'll let you know.
They are the best. They're located in Pearl, and they actually have several different offices, but the closest one to us here in Central Mississippi is their Pearl office. So give Complete Exteriors a call. Well, I think we've got our charge for
Yep.
this week,
I
and
think so,
that
too.
is to, when you are not the one offended, but you're seeing someone that you love going through a difficult time, a death, some type of a volatile change in their life. Maybe it's an issue with one of their children, a wayward child, whatever that is, that you reach out to them, that you love on them, whether that love is virtually, through a message or a text, or whether it's a phone call, whether it's a great big hug when you see them out at the local stores, or whether you get down into the pit. Let's see how many pits that we can jump into with other people
Sure.
in the coming days and the coming weeks.
Let me add something too that we didn't touch on, but I feel like it's really important. There are going to be those people who are going to say, no, I've got it.
Yeah, oh my
And it's
goodness.
because this is a whole nother
Yes.
podcast, but it's because they're built, and I'm one of them, to be like,
Same,
no, I
same.
don't need any help,
I'm
because
good.
they feel like
Yep.
they're a burden. They feel like
Yep.
they're in your space. They feel like they don't want you to put yourself out. I was talking to a friend of mine who was saying that one of her friends had her husband die, and that they were all reaching out. And when someone dies, we all tend to say that, like, let me know if you need anything, because we don't know what they need. We don't
Right.
know what they
Right.
want, and they are never going to tell us what they need.
Right.
And she said when that happened, she said all I could think to do was, and one of y'all mentioned it, was go to the grocery store, get a whole bunch of food, go over there, and I cooked dinner for her and whatever. And she said we didn't even really say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's another part of the challenge for me is, even when that person is a stone wall, they don't need anything from you. Find that place where you can pour into them, maybe in a sneaky way that they don't see coming, because everyone in this room is one of those.
Yes.
And we all know it about each other.
We do.
So,
We do. Oh, that's so good. Y'all listen here. Boy, that was a good lesson today.
yep.
That was a very good lesson today. Well, we hope that you gleaned something from this discussion today, and that this inspired you and motivated you and really just blessed your heart. So we'll see you next time on Y'all Listen Here.
It's a brand new day.